I'm author Mark Muncy,
I'm author Erika Lance.
and this is Eerie Travels.
We're here. Why are you not talking?
Oh, I completely was like, oh my gosh, I was entranced by Destiny's music. I was like, oh, I wish it would go on forever. So,
oh my
sorry.
goodness. So real quick before we begin this, Mark is mostly paying attention.
I'm back. I'm back.
Okay. I'm going to do a disclaimer real quick for anybody listening. We
yes.
are going to touch on some very dark topics, including slavery. There's some brutality in this episode. It's in honor of Black History Month, but if this is something that's a trigger for you, you might want to skip this episode and wait for the next one. So this is our trigger warning. Be prepared. So it's official.
It is a really good story.
So. Yeah. So Mark, I know you were being swayed by Destiny's music, but what's new and exciting? Did you see the news?
The news. Oh my gosh. Like I said, we were just talking about this, a little while ago that we didn't expect a government discussing UFOs in our lifetime after Project Blue Book closed. And then then we had the whole report, we had all that, and then now we had fun with the Chinese balloon going over our entire country, and everybody was winding down from that. And that was the memes on that were off the chart. That was incredible. The memes alone, I'm still trying to figure out how it flew over Montana and did not get shot down. That is the question for me.
Well, it just depends on if it went anywhere near a populated area of Montana, because I love Montana, but there's like 12 people that live there.
Yeah, exactly. But those 12 people are as armed as anybody I know. So
oh yeah. Yes.
But anyway, but after that, just calming down from that, and then suddenly Alaska, another thing comes over Alaska, and we shoot it down. And not only do we not make it secret, we tell the world about this in a press conference that we shot down a UFO over Alaska, or right as it entered Alaskan waters, which were frozen waters, but it's still, it's there. And have we recovered it? They haven't said anything else. We don't know if there were bodies. We don't know if there was anything, but they said a cigar-shaped UFO.
No, they said it was shaped like a car.
Car.
So here's the thing. I do not think this is a UFO. I am starting to believe that witches and wizards are real, because if we all recall from Harry Potter, Harry and Ron stole a car that was an original car that was magicked by Ron's father to fly. So I think what they shot down was a 50s era Buick that has been imbued with magic, and that's what they're going to find. Poor
Ron and Harry are now, hit by an F-16.
Very different than the Whomping Willow. That's all I'm going to say. Like, the Whomping Willow was a cakewalk in comparison to what the U.S. government will do.
An anti-aircraft missile, it just, took them out. Avada Kedavra that, I don't think so. But
yeah, you know what? It's interesting because it does bring up the point, and I know we need to get into our episode here, but it does bring up the point that I'm wondering if the U.S. government is starting to get that hiding some of this stuff from the public is no longer an option.
Yeah, there was video footage of this. Somebody got it. I mean, this is Alaska, where there's not a lot of people, and this was before it hit Alaska shores, but somebody caught it on camera, which is the whole reason they had to comment on it. And especially since everybody's now on heightened alert after the balloon whole incident. That was another one. They probably weren't going to talk about it, but it was in plain sight, so it was kind of hard to hide. My favorite thing about the stories on this is the same thing I've noticed a trend in science stories of late, is they cannot get their measuring systems down for the life of them. We spotted an asteroid that was the size of 2 giraffes. And that was a headline. I'm like, when did giraffes become the standard unit of measurement for science? The size of a small sedan.
Be a thing. Yeah, like And here's the thing, and I get it if you don't want to use the US inches and feet and stuff like that, because everyone else pretty much uses the metric system.
Yep.
But seriously, you can't, like measure things correctly.
The size the size of a stadium. Well, what type of stadium? There's a lot of different stadiums I've been to, and they're all different sizes. The one, what was it? There was we had a bit of the sun. This is something new that we should probably talk about a little bit. The sun, part of it broke off and spiraling around the top of the sun. What? And this is because we have a new satellite up there that can see this. Apparently, we don't know if it happens all the time. This could be a new thing. This could be an old thing. But it's crazy that this has happened. But again, the description of it was solar flare, or piece of the sun breaks off, and you're sitting there going, how big of a piece? Is there a description of this? No, just this piece of the sun breaks off. I'm like, I'd like to know if my sun is breaking. It's kind of important.
It sounds like it would be very important. Well, I just found the link to that, and literally Science Alert says part of the sun is broken off and formed a vortex. What the heck is going on? It formed a vortex 1 day ago. What does that even mean? I have to look. Material from a filament of plasma erupting from the sun and formed a crown-like vortex over the solar North Pole.
Yep, like wearing a halo. So
you know what this says to me is, what is it that the winter is coming, summer is coming.
Summer is coming, and we're gonna melt. I mean, that's
the orange walkers are heading towards.
And all this, and we've got UFOs being shot down over Alaska. So, it's watch the skies, folks. Keep watching the skies.
Oh my goodness. I grabbed all those links too. I'm sure Callie will put them into our show notes so everybody can see this ridiculousness.
So we've got a Harry Potter car, a balloon, and now the sun's breaking. This is, I don't know. This is, it's an odd time to be alive. That's all I can say.
It is a very odd time to be alive. But
the fact that these are in the paper,
time to be alive.
Yeah, these are actually actual news. That none of this would have been reported 10, 20 years ago. This would all been, the fact we went out a satellite up there to see this then, on the sun. And it's not like we watch the sun pretty closely, even though it is kind of important to us. It is what it is.
Yeah, no, super true.
Well, anywho, after that breaking news,
which riveting breaking news,
news. It is still Black History Month.
Yes, it is.
After Rosewood, I was going to take us to another place in Florida because it's another place I'm very familiar with. But to do that, I want to talk about a young lady who this is all really about.
Okay.
Her name is Anna Kingsley. And she is originally from Senegal. And this is the 1800s.
Where is Senegal?
Senegal is in Africa.
Okay.
And she was captured by neighbors and sold into slavery.
Got it.
And with that, she is shipped along the Northwest Passage, and the worst possible conditions anybody could ever endure, along with others. And this is the area the sharks follow this trail to this day, because so many slaves were just dropped over the side as they would die, or they were not fit, or they would act up. Oh, we'll throw you over the side. Guess what? You're in the ocean. Good luck. And many of the slaves actually escaped the hold and would jump into the water to just try to, because it was better than the conditions they were held in. And just this terrible, terrible time. And she had been a princess, they say, of her village. and her name was Anta at that point, and that she was, going to be a queen of this village, but here she has been taken over by a rival village. They sell her into slavery. She's on her way to Havana, where she arrives in March of 1811, and it's Spanish controlled Havana at this point, and and she is being sold, and she's 13.
Oh my
and
goodness.
So she's a young girl, and she's being bid on pretty heavily because she is apparently a very striking young girl. And the man who bids on her is a man named Zephaniah Kingsley. And he outbids everybody. He is infatuated with her, got to have her for his plantation that he owns back in the US.
And who is he?
Now, he is just a plantation owner. He lives in an area near what they called Laurel Grove. And he's 40 something, like 42. And he's down here in Havana buying slaves for his land. And he sees Anta and decides, I want to marry her. Buys her, and I'm going to marry her right now. Not even going to leave.
So he purchases her not for he purchases her, I could use my words, as a slave, but then he marries her?
Yes, in an African ceremony, with her people that he has also purchased, because she tells him who she would like to be with, members from her tribe who have been taken. So she steers him to buying other slaves so they can keep families together, to keep people together. And he's all for it because he's in love with this girl. And then he, they head home on his boat to his plantation. Now, the thing is, his wedding was not approved because it wasn't a Catholic wedding, so the Spanish didn't approve it. His wedding was not approved by Florida because it was still Spanish Florida at this time.
Well, I'm also assuming that at that time, marrying a slave was not approved as well. It's ridiculous to add that into this story as possible, like the concept that you would purchase a human, then marry them in an African. I'm sure there's like a laundry list of what was not okay with this.
Well, the Spanish do allow marriages with slaves. You gotta remember, they actually treated slaves a lot better than the American slavery, which was just north of them, because this was still Spanish Florida. They actually would allow slaves to marry and be freed. They allowed slaves to be freed by working off their indenture and working off things like that. Things were a lot better for them than you think. And so that's what Anna, where she changed her name to Anna for him. He said, your name is now Anna, and she liked it. And by the time they got back to his land, she was already with her first child. And they had a young boy. And by the time she turns 18 a few years later, she's already had 3 kids with him. And has moved into the big house with him. She didn't stay in the slave quarters. She lived in the fancy house.
Okay. And where is this located?
This is in what Laurel Grove, which is just south of today's Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. And she decides, so she gets freed because she's married to this person. He's made her a free woman. He's also bought 2 other wives. We don't really talk about them that much right now, but but Anna is the lady of the house.
Okay.
And the other 2 are, just, there. And there are his other wives that he's going to have a couple more children with. But they follow Anna's lead. Anna's actually managing the plantation while Zephaniah goes on business trips to buy more slaves, to buy more stuff. And he lets her run the plantation with another freed slave, and they manage the place. So there now, slavery is still, it's terrible, but Zephaniah with her comes up with some neat ways to let the people work. He's like, he gives them a list of things they need to get done, and they can do it as fast or as slow as they want. And the faster they get it done, they can just take the rest of the day off. So if they work really hard, and then they can do whatever they want to with the rest of the day. He also let them pursue their own projects. He let them make their own crafts. He let them gave them all their own plots of land to grow their own groceries, to grow their own, make their own farms and make their own little things. And they were allowed to sell their stuff at the market in addition to selling his stuff. And they could keep their own money and earn their freedoms and things like that. And this was all because of Anna telling him these things. But he had apparently been doing that a little bit before then, mostly because that freed slave who was managing the property told him it would keep rebellion down and it would make people happier.
Well, I think, there's no justification for any of that. So let's just cover that. So although we're talking about some great things that this particular human did at that time. Right. Not, he was a hero.
No, he's still a terrible person who bought a 13-year-old girl. Come on.
And married her. Married her. That. But it sounds like he was endeavoring during that time period to make a bit of a difference in the lives of these people and treat them like people. Although the whole slave ownership thing is still,
it's still terrible.
So, so she was running everything, which is amazing.
Yep. And then, now he, Anna is actually owning slaves now herself.
She's owning them herself?
She's owning them herself. And so she petitions the Spanish government for land. And she was granted 5 acres on the St. Johns River right across from her husband's plantation of Laurel Grove. And she purchases her own goods and livestock and slaves. And she also, so she became basically one of the most significant freed African descent person in East Florida. And so she, got this land and started her own plantation, was going to be her own person. Okay.
But how old was she when this happened? Do we know?
18. So this is right after the birth of her 3rd child.
Okay.
So, all right. So she's doing all this. And suddenly a new group enters the picture.
Okay.
And this is a time that is called the Patriot Rebellion. This is where some people from Georgia decide Florida should be part of the new fledgling United States. And so to spur that on, they decide to have North Florida rebel against the Spanish and kick the Spanish out so that they'll sign a treaty and make Florida part of the United States. And they start attacking south into Florida, right around Jacksonville. Now, they know, Anna and Zephaniah know that this is bad. If they get caught, she'll be put back into slavery. Her kids will be put into slavery. Their freed slaves will be put back into slavery. So they flee. But before they flee, Anna and her children are escaping on a gunboat, and a Spanish gunboat, and they supposedly burn their plantation to the ground because Laurel Grove had been taken by the rebellion and was being used as a base of operation. And a lot of the men had been returned to the north to be slaves again. So they burned her property across the water. And Spain was so impressed with this because there was an act of loyalty to the Spanish crown. They decide to give her $1,500 worth of stuff, which was a ton of money in that day.
Oh my gosh, that was literally a ton of money.
Yeah, and a grant of land of 350 acres.
Oh, wow.
So she literally has 10 times the amount of land she's going to have when she comes back. Now, so Zephaniah and her flee back to Cuba, and they stay there for a little bit till the rebellion ends. And they decide they're going to move back to Florida now and claim her land. Now, next to her land is an island called Fort George Island. Now, Fort George Island had a previous owner who was an American Revolutionary War hero named Lightning McQueen.
That sounds like something from a 70s action movie.
Or a Pixar movie. So they might have used the name. But Lightning McQueen had this plantation on Fort George Island, and it was one of the few plantations that was not burned down by this rebellion. And so Zephaniah and Anna move there. They buy it. So it's a 1,000-acre island. Birds of every description. There's some Indian mounds on it. And they restore the plantation to life. And
oh, wow.
Beautiful house there. And it's got this wonderful tidal marsh and the ocean's there. And Anna and him live there for the next 23 years.
Wow.
Amazing place. They build the slave quarters, they build completely differently than any other plantation ever. It's built in a semicircle of these coquina houses, and each family is allowed to live in their own little house, and they can build their own house.
Okay.
And some people early on were like, oh, this is a great way for them in the house to keep an eye on the slaves and all this. No, it's the way Anna's villages were back in Senegal. It was they built the circles. So she was building another village, another tribe. And that's why this is, this princess was bringing back being a princess. And she lived in the cookhouse, above the cookhouse, in her own little house that they had built special for her there, for her and her kids. The Man Anna house, it was called, because it was Anna's house. Now she did do stuff in the big house, but this was her place. It was her special place. Again, she ran the plantation for decades, and and she's living life good. There's the St. John's River, they're on this wonderful place, and they've got timberland, they've got orange groves. They start opening minor plantations around. She's got that 350 acres that Spanish gave her. And Zephaniah owned ships, so that's what they were using. And so Anna had access to these ships, so she was using that to help her business as well. Kingsley later said in one of his papers that she could carry on all the affairs of the plantation in my absence as well as I could. And so they had 60 men and women and children who lived on Fort George Island in slavery. But the Kingsley slaves were building the Kingsley Plantation's wealth. So,
well, and I think most of the time, unfortunately, a lot of wealth was built on the backs of slavery. But it sounds like that they had a different approach to how they did this with everybody, and the change in this, including, lending wealth and allowing people to get out of that, right?
Right.
So I do have a question. I know we have to take a break in a minute, but when I was doing my little looky-loo on this, there was something about polyamory.
Yes. Well, like I said, she was apparently in love with the manager the freed slave. And so they had a secret marriage. And then Zephaniah had his 3 wives. So, and apparently they all got along, and it was just a wonderful, just the way it was. And that was also the way the slaves were there. These slave families intermingled and did that. And so we're at this kind of nice little stopping point here where everything is kind of pleasant. Things are moving along and all this, and things are about to change.
I was going to say, I don't think we're going to stay there, but I think we're going to do our break and come back and have things go wrong. Am I correct?
I wouldn't say wrong, but different. Yeah, and wrong in some ways. Yeah.
Well, this is about ghosts, so
Right.
at some point,
We're building.
people have to die. So
we're building to that. Yeah.
The dying part after the break.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Now the real scary stuff, gang. Let's listen to those commercials.
Okay. Exactly. Capitalism.
Erie, Appalachia. Gear up for a frightful jaunt into the darkest reaches of the ancient Appalachians. Folks deep within the Appalachian hollers lean close to the campfire to share stories of the inexplicable with hushed awe. Monsters rumbling in the hills, strange lights darting through the pitch black night sky, horrible occurrences almost ineffable in their bizarre tragedy. Tall tales, you might say. Tell that to the Flatwoods monster in Braxton County, West Virginia, or the Goat Man of Louisville. Look into his humanoid eyes and let him know you don't believe. And what of those apparitions in Mammoth Cave's Corpse Rock, or the Satan spawn known as the Jersey Devil? How do you respond when confronted by these mysteries? From the metaphysical energy that swirls near Serpent Mound in Ohio to Point Pleasant's Mothman legacy, Mark Muncy and Carrie Schultz explore the dark history lurking in the shadows of Appalachia. Read by Mark Muncy, author and experts on strange folklore with appearances on shows such as Ancient Aliens, The Curse of Robert the Doll, and many, many more.
Greetings, mortals and others. I'm Dick Terhune, the voice from hell. I work with haunted attractions all over the US, Canada, and Europe to increase audiences and enhance their experience with highly effective commercials, narrations, animatronic character voices, whatever your dark heart desires. Let me help you do more, scare more, profit more. Find out more at Voice from Hell on Facebook and at voicefromhell.com.
We're back. I want something to die. What's happening?
Okay, so we things until 1821, when Zephaniah is appointed to the 1823 Territorial Legislative Council because Florida has become part of the new United States. And Zephaniah is trying to persuade the lawmakers to adopt policies similar to those of the Spanish, allowing for rights of the free Black population. He's trying to allow, slaves to earn their freedom. He's trying to allow marriages to slaves to be legal and that their children can inherit property. And the Florida legislatures were like, nope, none of this,
Yeah, well,
they were feared of slave rebellions. So, nope.
No.
And so they did make a treaty with Spain when they took the property that said they would protect the free status of colored people in Florida. But the problem is 1824, Zephaniah and Anna have their new son, their 4th child. And he will not be allowed to inherit anything, and he is considered not free because it was basically anybody born before the 1821 Onias Treaty would be okay. What exactly are records back then? That's the problem. So and then Haiti happens, and they become the first free independent Black republic, the Island of Liberty. So Anna and her sons are going to flee to Haiti. We're done. We're not going to deal with this. And because we're just going to go out there to Haiti. And and they buy land there on north of Haiti. And I cannot pronounce the name of their land because I don't speak Haitian or French, which it could be. It's
Okay.
Maya Sorgo de Coca is as close as I get. Apologies, I tried. But it was apparently heavily timbered and very flowerful. And Anna wrote about that the fruits were in abundance and so delicious that you could not stop from eating everything here. They planned a school, and they were building all this stuff, and they were there for a few years. So in 1837, they're there, right?
Okay.
They stayed at the Kingsley Plantation for a little while they built that place. But in 1843, Zephaniah, who is now 78, was up in New York on another business trip, and he dies.
Oh.
So his estate is worth a ton. And he left it all to Anna.
Was he allowed to do that?
He was under Spanish law. Under Florida law, that was the question. So here's where our villain comes in. I like to think of her as a villain. Anna's
I don't like this.
Anna comes back to Florida with her oldest son, George, to defend the rights of their land, right?
Okay.
And then her younger son, John, is running the Haitian with the other daughter.
Okay.
So she could not return to Fort George Island because they had sold that plantation, but they were going to the other area near the St. Johns River where they had the other property that they were also running.
Okay.
And they get there, and Zephaniah has a sister who is claiming that this is all hers now. She needs all of this. And so, and none of this is legal with Anna. Obviously, she encircled him. She's a witch. She's a voodoo queen, all this other fun stuff. And they fight in court.
Oh, wow.
And in a very rare occurrence, Anna wins.
What?
Anna got the Kingsley Plantation. How
the heck does that happen? I mean, that's amazing.
That's got to be how terrible this sister-in-law is, right? She apparently upset the judge because she was so mean-spirited. Now, there was another bit with her. Now, Anna is one of those, we have no pictures of Anna. There were no portraits of Anna. It's probably one of the saddest things lost to history. If you see a picture of her somewhere in a book, that picture that's supposedly of her is actually one of her freed slaves that was taken for a later production. It was not Anna. But we have one of the best descriptions of Anna from from the sister's daughter, so Anna's niece, who stayed at the Kingsley Plantation once and stayed at the Anna house. She was not staying in the big house. She stayed in the small house with Anna. And because she did that, the mother flipped out, because how dare her white daughter stay with the slaves in this location. So, terrible person all around. And
she sounds terrible. Is she the villain of our story?
She's the villain of our story. She is the Cruella de Vil of all this, because she also she wanted all the slaves because she just wanted to sell it and get the money. She didn't want to run the plantation, didn't want to do anything like that. She literally just wanted the money for it and be done.
Wow.
She lived in Virginia, had nothing to do with the Florida plantation and all that.
Okay.
Well, anyway, Anna wins, which is great. She does not move back to Kingsley Plantation, but she pleads with everybody to flee as best they can, because the Civil War comes in 1862.
Well, and that's a whole different
story, right?
Yeah.
Now, she was in Jacksonville, which was quickly taken by the Union, and she became kind of the safe place for the slaves to come. And so she let them stay at the plantation as best she could, right?
Uh-huh.
And it was a place for them to stay. And the sad thing is, Civil War ends, but she had fled to New York. She also had family who lived a little further south in Florida, and she would talk to them. And so she stayed there a little bit. But after the Civil War is over, 1870, she dies. There are no diaries. There's no, letters. There's no portrait.
Okay.
Even her grave is unmarked. We don't know where she is buried.
Do you think that was done intentionally?
I don't believe so. I just think it was another one of those. She had no records. Now, there are families that claim her descendants, right? And that is well known. What was amazing about this is for a long time, a lot of the freed slaves, after the Civil War, take the name Kingsley because that was the safe name.
Wow.
If you were from the Kingsley Plantation, you were a freed person before all the Civil War happened. So for a time, Jacksonville, those early days of phone books, there were more Kingsleys than there were Smiths.
Wow.
So it was the most common name in North Florida for a long time. Anna literally changed the world in her area as best she could. Now there have been disputes that was she really a princess or was that just kind of a folk tale? Well, they were able to find the village that she came from. There are descendants of that tribe that do claim royalty. Supposedly her name means blood of the queen, not, the queen. So maybe that's where they got it from, or maybe she is descended from royalty. But I love the story of this princess sold into slavery and then becoming a queen, man. She owned her own land. She changed the world. She led some of the early caucuses with her husband, on trying to, treat slavery better and all this.
Well, it seems like she made a difference, which is amazing and heroic and not perfect. Not everybody can be perfect. No. And of course, we can look back at history and there's a lot of horrific parts to this story, and you can go down the rabbit hole on researching it that are bad. They were slaves, but they did make a difference. They did free a bunch of slaves before the freedom of slaves was a thing, and they made it so that they could create a life where they were. Not that it, balances everything out, but it does make a difference, which is fantastic.
Now, so the house avoided the ravages of Civil War, avoided the Revolutionary War, avoided the Patriot Rebellion. So the house is still there. It eventually became a state park, and now it is a national park. So it has a little bit of funding. They've been able to upkeep the house. The slave quarters are still there in that unique semicircular shape of the Coquina. And so you can go visit it out on Fort George Island. You drive along a wonderful, Spanish moss covered road to get out to it. But when you get there, what you want to watch for is there are 3 known ghosts at this place. And then I was going to
say, where are the ghosts?
Okay, so the first one is supposedly Anna herself.
Okay.
And she is known as we all love to call them, the Lady in White.
She's a lady. I just got
Lady in White.
You know how I love the Lady in White.
I love the ladies in white. So she is seen in the main house, wandering around, usually looking out the porch, out at the water, watching the water, the tide of the marsh. And her spirit is supposedly a very kind, very welcoming spirit. You'll feel, a positive energy if you see her. She is probably one of the most photographed ghosts there because she is so visual. There is a negative spirit on the island. Now, before I go into that one, though, I do want to say the Anna goat. I'm not 100% sure that that's Anna. I think it might
describe the Lady in White. Tell me what happens with her. What have people seen?
They see a lady in a white flowing gown wandering through the house, and she wanders the living area and then out to that porch area and looks out at the sun. and fades into the light. Now, the pictures of her are usually people taking pictures of the windows of the house because it is a very photographic house. People love looking at the house, and that's when they see her in the reflections in the mirrors or in the, distortions there, all that. Now, the reason I don't believe 100% that it is Anna is because Anna stayed in the Anna house, the house next to it, the above the kitchen. That was her home. That was where she stayed. And even then, she died hundreds of miles away. She really only lived in this plantation for a short period of her life. As some people say, well, this is where she had her happiest memories. Okay, that's possible too. But a couple of his wives did die here, and they were all treated very well too. And one of them lived in the big house.
Do we know what her name is?
I do not know her name, and that's the problem. Her name was lost, even with all the records that the Kingsleys kept. It could have been Clara, but again, the names have escaped. Anna is the only one who actually owned property, so she's the only one we actually have records of.
Well, I think that we should challenge those that are paranormal investigators out there to see if they can get the name nicely from this woman in white.
Yep.
And let us know if they get any sort of name or if a medium gets any sort of information. We would love to hear it.
Yep.
So this is Ghost One. I love that it's a lady in white. I think you set that up intentionally to continue to garner my interest in these ghosts.
Yes. So the second ghost is a dark and scary ghost. And the legend of him is that he was a very bad man amongst the freed slaves, and that he was doing terrible things to other slaves, including terrible things to women and children, including murder, but even more around that. So we'll dodge the words, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Wow.
And so they gathered together and formed a justice group to hunt this guy down and put him out of their misery. And supposedly he was buried in the swamp. Some of the later legends say he was lynched, but to be fair, lynching did not really occur till much later in history. So that was not a common thing before the Civil War. He was a criminal. Yeah, but still was not a common thing before the Civil War. And this would have been pre that. So I think that is where it got embellished. But I do believe, it could have been somebody bad there. The story is very ground there. But he is called Old Red Eye, and Red Eyes.
Why did they call him that?
Because his eyes were glowed red. That's why he was so evil. He was possessed, and that's what caused him to do all this stuff. And so his spirit now roams the island, and you'll see him as these giant red eyes up in the trees, or 10 feet tall. And the stories are very back and forth on it. Now, when you ask the rangers at this park about the ghosts, right, they will happily tell you about the lady in white. And when you ask them about Old Red Eye, they have a very natural, and of course, blow the whole legend of Red Eye out of the water by saying, we do have red eyes in the trees. They're called possums. And when you're driving down that road and your light hits it, you'll see two red eyes about 9 feet high staring back at you. So, those park rangers love to take the fun out of everything. But
of course they do.
But that is likely because that's what Carrie and I saw when we were driving back.
You saw possums in the trees?
We saw red eyes, and I was like, "Oh, it's Red Eye!" Oh, it was a possum. Now there are a couple animal spirits there that I think are fascinating. One of the stories is you will hear a baby cry in the distance, and then you will be visited by an albino peacock. That will wander along. Now, there were peacocks on the property, and I guess eventually there could have been an albino peacock, but a ghostly albino peacock. Now, it's supposed to symbolize rebirth in Christian myth and stuff. So maybe it's a visit with the rebirth of the plantation through so many rebirths of it.
Well, you know what's interesting is I think a lot of people don't know how many peacocks there are in Florida.
Yeah, exactly.
There is a ridiculous amount of peacocks in Florida.
And if you've ever heard one of them cry out, it does sound
like somebody screaming.
Or a baby crying if they're little. So,
Yeah.
So that is why I think, again, another natural explanation that just people wanted a supernatural explanation for, because they met an albino peacock. So they made up a story about it. Now, the other spirit there is yet another Florida local monster that hangs out under the final step before the plantation heads into the water.
Okay.
That is a ghostly alligator.
What?
Yes.
What?
Not a real alligator. You'll walk down the steps and you'll be fine. But as soon as you get to the bottom steps, you'll hear the hoof of an alligator grunt, and you'll turn around and there will be an alligator that was not there when you went up the steps. And then it will disappear quickly. So a ghostly alligator at the base of the steps to the Kingsley Plantation. Now that one, the park rangers say, oh, you just saw an alligator. Well, then why did it disappear instantly? Oh, well, you saw it, or you misheard it. And there is an alligator, goes there occasionally. We've been many times. I've never seen the alligator. I've never seen the ghostly alligator. But when I asked them about it, they're like, oh, it's just an alligator. Tourists don't understand it up here. Well, paranormal teams have recorded it, and they've gotten that woof on EVP, which is amazing to me. So the final spirit there, and I'm not really sure you would call it a single spirit, because what happens is there is a group of spirits that come from the slave quarters toward the big house en masse. They just say like shapes of shadows moving on the island towards the central spike of where the plantation leads out. So it would be in the town center, as it were, as like I said, as Anna made this like a village, an African village. This would have been the center, and they all come there and gather, and then they just kind of sway as though listening to a strange song or just in the wind. And they call it the ghostly horde of Kingsley. And
but they're peaceful.
They're peaceful. They don't do anything. They just kind of stand there for moments, generally under the light of a moon, mostly a full moon from what I've heard. And then they fade away into.
So you've been there a couple times. Have you seen any of these?
I have not seen any of those except for the red eyes, which I'm pretty sure was a possum. It is an amazing place. I will say you get some strange vibes on that island. It has a unique energy to it. It is definitely it's also beautiful. So many, plants and animals, and the trees there are amazing. The Indian mounds there are, the native mounds are incredible also, even though many of them were destroyed. The Spanish mission that was lost on the island, they think they found it now. That was there when it was first founded. They've found some ruins that might be it. They've dug them up. There's an archaeological dig going on there now to see if that's it. Now there is a lost colony somewhere in that area near either Fernandina Beach or St. John's River. It was the French colony that got destroyed in the whole Matanzas massacre, which is another episode we'll talk about down the line. Okay. It was called Fort Marion. There is a Fort Marion National Park up there, but it is not where the real Fort Marion was, because we don't know where the real Fort Marion was. And we just assumed it was this spot, but it could have been on Fort George Island, and Lightning McQueen didn't write about it, when he took over the island and built his plantation. We don't know. So records at that time, like I said, are spotty at best. And, but anyway.
This sounds like a really fun adventure, though, that somebody could go on.
Yeah, definitely.
As the travel part, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Make your trip to Jacksonville, and then just make sure you head up to the Kingsley Plantation National Park. You can also visit the Dummett Sugar Mill. The ruins of the Dummett Sugar Mill are right on the road to that. That's an amazing place. It's not too far from the Tomoka Springs, which is another wonderful native lore about a man who had the Holy Grail, basically a cup that made him invincible, a native chief, and then the Spanish killed him. So
well,
maybe not as
that
invincible as he
doesn't
thought.
sound like he was invincible.
Not as invincible as he thought, anyway. But you know,
No.
keep your eyes out for albino peacocks, and keep your eyes out for wonderful red-eyed possums.
So is there, before we is there any things that people need to know? Like, are there ways they should approach some of these people or anything like that?
Yeah, and that's exactly, you know, we're going to be talking, that's next step here. So
Okay.
the alligator, to see the alligator, you are to walk through the kitchen to the back porch and then head down the stairs. And
Okay.
supposedly to call the ghostly gator, you have to have smell of food. So bring a snack, bring a hot dog, bring something. There isn't any food out in the park. So, you know, and again, throw away
Okay.
anything you bring, because, you know, take only pictures and leave only footprints. Now, the lady in white, maybe Anna, maybe one of the other ladies of the house, what you want to watch out for her is when you go into the house, the big
Mhm.
house, the living room area is off to the left. And then there is this like parlor area that you walk right into. And then over to the right is the passage to Anna's house. But keep going straight back. And then over to the left is what they've kind of made it into a library area, but it was probably the dining room area at the time. And that is where the lady in white is seen. And she
Okay.
wanders along where the shelves are now, but she even like walks through the shelves because the shelves weren't there when she was there. So so she obviously was looking out the wall, looking at possibly paintings on the wall. We're not even sure what was there at the time. But when she gets out to the back, when she gets out over that water and
Mhm.
starts looking over that railing, that's where a lot of paranormal teams have said they've had the most experiences with her, is by setting up there with their EMPs or with their, you know, REM pods to try to juice up the energy in the area. That's where you want to put your listening device. That's where you want to take pictures. That's where you'll catch her most likely. Now, the park is closed at night. It is a national park, so they close at dusk. There are
Okay.
times though that you are allowed to go there at night. They do some evening events, and they will allow paranormal teams there with permission. You have to go through a lot of hoops for the state of Florida to do this, but they tend to have paranormal teams on standby that you might be able to link up with to go if you really want to go on one of their events. So if you go to the Kingsley Plantation website, they have lists of their evening things. They do moon over the mounds, they call it, where you can go out on full moon nights, which is the nights that a lot of this stuff happens, because it's a dark sky location. You can go out there and look at the moon. You can go out there and look at the stars. It is beautiful. That is when you want to watch for the ghostly horde. That is when you want to watch for old red eye. And that is when you want to watch for the peacock. But just remember, when you're hitting that brake light as you're backing out and you see those red eyes in the mirror behind you, it's probably a possum. But if you see the red eyes,
nice.
yes,
Do not be mean to possums.
no, possums are great, and they're eating the mosquitoes. Let them do what they do.
Yes.
And you know, they're taking care of the other pest problems. It's like bats. Let the bats do what they want to do. They're eating all the mosquitoes too. Come on, we love our furry friends, even though I'm allergic to them all. But all right, so the alligator ghost, like I said, it's mostly audible before you see it.
Okay.
So be ready if you have a camera. No one's ever got a photo of this thing because it's gone in a flash. But so many people have described it that it is now listed as one of the ghosts there. The peacock was a couple times thing, mostly in the 70s, so it may not be there anymore. It may have been a albino peacock wild in the area. The lady in white, though, she has been seen consistently since the early 1900s all the way through today. And the park rangers, they're not supposed to talk about her, but they will talk about the ghosts. They will talk about the ghostly horde because a couple of them have witnessed it.
So why
So
won't they talk about the lady in white?
it's I guess it's one of those, they're afraid that if they talk about that it could be Anna, that it could be, I think maybe it's because a black lady in white doesn't sound right to them. That's kind of the feeling I got from the two rangers I talked to, was that, it's, you can't call her a lady in white if it's a black lady. Well, yes, you can. She's wearing a white dress. It's all good. It's
Yeah, no, that it was
problematic.
closed back
Yep.
then.
Yep.
That's-
And that's why, these things happen. I will say, back to Anna, back to her sister-in-law that she had the feud with. Thankfully, the sister-in-law died of tuberculosis a couple years after all this madness.
Karma.
So, couldn't happen to a nicer person. She definitely did not like people mixing with other kinds, and, hey, but Anna herself lived, like I said, to a ripe old age. She had 4 wonderful children. One of her descendants became Florida's first black millionaire.
Oh, who's that?
Abraham Lincoln Kingsley. He was a millionaire industrialist, an investor, and opened up some sawmills, opened up some lumber mills, and became Florida's first black millionaire. Some of her other descendants went on to serve as judges and went on to serve in Florida House. And
wow.
so, her bloodline was strong and did very well and are still around today. Most of them are in Haiti, where I think if I was Anna, I probably would have been down in Haiti with my family. And if I was haunting somewhere, that's where I'd be haunting. Is that
Yeah, no,
plantation down there.
it sounds like that was much safer at that point. What's very interesting about this plantation too, it has, first of all, it does have a widow walk, which I think is, I love widow walks on houses, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and that tells you they did a lot of things with boats and stuff like that, because people would leave. Generally the husbands would leave and they'd go walk waiting for them to come back.
Yep.
So there's that. The other thing is, you can actually go become a junior ranger at this park.
Yes.
And there's entire curriculum materials that you can get and teach in schools and classrooms, which is amazing to continue to learn the history of these types of situations. So if you're listening and you're a teacher, or you want to go explore and you want to become a junior ranger, absolutely make sure you look into this. We're going to put the link in our show notes, because what was accomplished here through all of the horrible things is still amazing, and did lead the way for several amazing things to happen.
Yeah.
So Anna, we salute you, whether or not you walk through the house in your white dress or not.
If you're down in Haiti and you're at your plantation there, which is also still there, we salute you there too, because I think that's more likely where you're resting or enjoying your afterlife. But this place is just one of those to have such an impact on history of Florida, and the fact that so few people know about it or even talk about it or go there. And next time you're planning our trip to Daytona Beach, take an hour north and go visit this. If you're going to St. Augustine and you've done all the ghost tours there, go take a small drive north and go visit this. If you're going to Fernandina Beach, which I think is very underrated, for an awesome place to visit, and Amelia Island, which was run by pirates for generations. Yes, that's an amazing place, but take another short jaunt over and visit the Kingsley Plantation, because it is incredible. And
it is.
And just soak up that history, because otherwise we're doomed to repeat it. That's what it's all about.
And the fact is, you can learn so much about where people in Florida, people around the world came from. Like, this is part of the history, and sadly not taught in the history of books the way it should be. So knowledge is power, my friends. Go Spider-Man this up and learn things.
Yes.
So
yes.
Wonderful.
And I don't think there's much else to say on this. It's one of those. So what have you got next? You've got some travels ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm going down to Florida, ironically. So, you're going to have to take me to visit this because I'm coming down to Florida. So that'll be exciting.
We're on the other side of the panhandle, though. We're going to be over at Pentagon. So
yeah, we will be. I'm not sure when this is going to air. So this might air after.
I don't know what this should be. Black History Month, so it's got to be in February, and we're there at the end of February. So
yeah, so let me look when this is going to air. This is going to air, it looks like, on the 28th,
which will be in Pentagon. So come on down and see us.
Come see the Erie Travels crew. We'd love to have you there. Yeah, but we've got many other things coming up, my friend.
Yes. I can't wait. March is going to be crazy. April's crazy. We have much ahead, and as we like to say, we'll let Destiny play us out as always.
We'll let her play it up, but don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a review, leave us a comment. Please feel free to go to erietravels.com and absolutely send us your listener stories. If you know anything about what we've discussed today, or there's things you want us to look into, we would love to hear from you. Many, many thanks to our amazing producer, Callie. Yes. We appreciate everything that they do for us, because we wouldn't be this great without them. And we will see you next time, right, Mark?
Yes, and we will see you on the other side.
Oh.